This is Algorithm Audit Field Notes, a live research series documenting what actually happens when professionals audit their digital environments for 7 days. I am Saurabh Sarma. This is Field Note 5. In Field Note 1, we name the phantom effect. In Field Note 2, we map the attention leak. In Field Note 3, we identified digital identity lag. In Field Note 4, we measured the diaspora attention gap. Today we go somewhere different, not another diagnosis. Numbers. What does all of this actually cost? In measurable, documented, honest terms. This is the digital time tax. Most people who want to understand their relationship with their phone check one number: screen time. It sits there in your settings. A daily average, a weekly total, a percentage up or down from last week. It feels like data. It feels like the answer. I checked mine recently. 3 hours and 5 minutes. Daily average, 45% lower than the previous week. On the surface, that looks like progress. But last week's number was higher not because the protocol failed, not because the algorithm won. It was higher because I was in the middle of something demanding, a professional transition, the kind that requires patience over reaction, strategic timing over emotional response. The kind of situation where every instinct tells you to move fast, and the smarter move is to wait. I waited, and in the heaviest weeks of that process, when cognitive capital was being consumed by decisions that mattered, the path of least resistance got shorter. The phone got heavier. The feed got easier. I found myself back on political content. Not all the way back, not the way it used to be, but enough to notice. And here is what I found when I got there: the same content cycling in the same patterns, the same insights I had heard before, worth listening to once, not worth returning to repeatedly. The same sensation news, the same blame cycles, the same outrage running on the same loop. But something was different this time. Before the audit, I was inside the cycle, reacting, being pulled. This time I could see it from the outside. I observed it. I assessed it. I made a conscious decision about what deserved my attention and what didn't. Then I hard reset my YouTube history and started again. The garden needed weeding, so I weeded it. That is the most honest description of what sustainable attention management actually looks like. Not a permanent fix, an ongoing practice. Here is what that transition period taught me that the audit hadn't fully articulated yet. The same principles apply everywhere, not just on your phone. In every environment where noise is competing for your attention and reaction is the path of least resistance. I didn't react to the noise around me during that transition. I protected my cognitive capital. I kept my focus on the outcome I was building toward. And because I waited, because I didn't get cognitively congested by the pressure to move fast, the transition resolved better than I had planned. I came out of it with more time, more focus, and the goodwill of the people I had worked alongside, moving forward with more space to build Saurav Insight properly. That outcome wasn't luck. It was what happens when you manage your attention the same way the audit asks you to manage your feed. Cognitive capital management isn't a digital skill, it's a life skill. I kept my focus on the outcome I was building toward. And because I waited, because I didn't get cognitively congested by the pressure to move fast, the transition resolved better than I had planned. I came out of it with more time, more focus, and the goodwill of the people I had worked alongside, moving forward with more space to build Saurav Insight properly. That outcome wasn't luck. It was what happens when you manage your attention the same way the audit asks you to manage your feed. Cognitive capital management isn't a digital skill, it's a life skill. Now, here is where the data gets interesting. Screen time is a flawed metric. It measures duration. It cannot measure direction. One of our cohort participants came back to me during the study with an observation I have been thinking about ever since. His screen time had gone up during the audit week. When I asked about it, he was clear. He was using his phone for work, creating video content, taking calls, managing professional tasks. The screen time metric flagged it as a problem. It wasn't a problem. Same number, completely different cognitive capital outcome. And from the other direction, another participant reduced their screen time meaningfully across the week. But on day 8, they reported still struggling to focus professionally, 5 out of 10 on professional alignment, lower screen time, no meaningful recovery. A third participant's screen time didn't change at all, but they scored 8 out of 10 on professional alignment and said their week felt more professional than usual. Same hours, completely different experience. The tax isn't in the hours. The tax is in the ratio of reactive consumption to intentional investment within those hours. 2 hours of doom scrolling and 2 hours of building something register identically on your screen time report, but they produce completely different outcomes for your cognitive capital. Screen time tells you how long you were on your phone. It cannot tell you whether that time was building your future or quietly taxing it. Before I started the algorithm audit, my honest estimate is that I was spending somewhere between 7 and 8 hours daily on my phone. I don't have a recorded baseline. I didn't think to measure it before I started changing things. That itself is worth noting. Most people don't measure their cognitive capital consumption before they start losing it. They only notice the cost after they've been paying it for years. My current daily average sits at just over 3 hours, a rough halving over the course of the audit period. But last week it crept back up, not to 7 or 8 hours, but enough, 45% higher than this week. And the cause wasn't algorithmic drift, it was depletion. When cognitive capital is exhausted by external demands, professional, personal, the accumulated weight of a period of significant change, the path of least resistance gets shorter. The digital time tax doesn't only operate when you're strong, it operates most aggressively when you're already depleted. That is when it extracts the most. My numbers sit within a broader pattern that is well documented. According to Data Reportal's annual Global Digital Report, the average person globally spends approximately 6 to 7 hours per day on screens across all devices. Ofcom's UK Communications Market Report places the average UK adult at 3 to 4 hours of daily smartphone use. Before the audit, my estimated 7 to 8 hours placed me at or above the global average. My current 3 hours places me below the UK average. But here is what those global numbers cannot tell us. They cannot tell us how much of that time is reactive consumption versus intentional investment. They cannot tell us how many of those hours are building something and how many are quietly taxing it. The global data measures the size of the tax. It cannot measure what is being taxed. Research on dopamine and digital reward systems shows that variable reward mechanisms are among the most powerful drivers of compulsive behavior known to behavioral science. The feed is not random, it is calibrated to keep you returning, particularly when your resistance is low. Research on ego depletion shows that the moments when we most need disciplined attention management are precisely the moments when we are least equipped to exercise it. Depletion doesn't just make us tired, it makes us vulnerable to exactly the kind of low resistance, high stimulation content the feed is designed to serve. And attention restoration theory, developed by Rachel and Stephen Kaplan, proposes that genuine cognitive recovery requires exposure to environments that make no demands on directed attention. Scrolling a reactive feed is the opposite of restorative. It demands constant micro responses like react, scroll, click, while creating the subjective sensation of rest. You feel like you are recovering. Your cognitive capital is still being taxed. So if screen time is the wrong metric, if it measures duration but not direction, then what is the right one? What would a meaningful measure of the digital time tax actually capture? The ratio of reactive consumption to intentional investment within a given hour. The cognitive capital cost of a depleted afternoon on a reactive feed versus a focused hour building something. The difference between time spent being processed by an algorithm and time spent directing one. That measurement doesn't exist yet as a mainstream tool. Building it is part of what this research is working toward. From our cohort, the signals are already pointing in that direction. Screen time reduction did not reliably predict professional alignment improvement. Protocol compliance on day one did, not screen time, intentionality, interesting pattern, not proof. A pattern worth investigating further. Screen time tells you how long you were on a device. It doesn't tell you what that time was doing to your thinking, your energy, or your ability to build what matters. Beta 2 is built to measure exactly that. The algorithm audit beta 2, cognitive capital edition is now live. A 7-day field study measuring not just screen time, but where your attention is actually directed and what that does to your focus and energy after the phone goes down. If you've ever checked your screen time and felt like the number wasn't telling you the whole story, you already know what we're measuring. The link is in the description because the digital time tax is not measured in hours. It is measured in what those hours were building or quietly consuming without your permission.